Man, what is it like as a coach now? Like you are recently on the other side of this as a player. Now you're seeing the development and the explosion of the portal where there's 2,000 kids in. And, I mean, like as a coach, if you're looking for somebody, like how overwhelming is this? How wild is it to see what's happened to all of this?
Definitely overwhelming. I think it's over almost 1,400 names in the portal currently right now. So it's definitely overwhelming. I think it's just something that we're going to have to get used to and kind of use it as an advantage over the next few years, not only Kansas State, but college coaches everywhere. Obviously, it's something different. Obviously, it's something new. But it's a different addition to your job as a recruiter and things of that nature. The 80s was different from the 90s. The 90s was different from the early 2000s. The early 2000s was different from the 2010s. And now we're doing that in 2021. So it's just where it's at right now. And we just got to keep updating with the times.
Shane Southwell talking with us. Yeah, I know Bruce had said earlier in a couple of interviews that Chris Kleiman actually was somebody who kind of pushed him to like, hey, you need to embrace this instead of fighting against it, because Bruce has not been shy about the fact that he doesn't like the rule in general to allow kids to transfer 1 year penalty-free without having to sit out a year. Like, how much encouragement did you have to give to Bruce and be somebody saying, like, hey, what if we embrace this? We can actually use this to our advantage here moving forward.
I think we all did as a staff, and just the tale of how the season went, and the story of how the season went. We had obviously one of the youngest teams in the country, not only in the Big 12, but in the country. And when you add that to the fact of being in the Big 12, it's definitely difficult to win. And our guys did as best as they could. It came along later in the season. But we knew we had to add not only good value, but older value with some experience. So we have almost 2,100 points, I believe, to come into our program right now, which is really, really good, really, really big time for us. And like I said, the experience factor is probably the most exciting part. So we knew we had to add experience. And I think Coach was definitely on board about that. And he was definitely a guy towards the end of the season that I didn't have to kind of kickstart anything. He knew it, and we all knew as a staff.
How different would things have looked back when you were playing if you had a free year to go transfer? How different would that have been?
I'll just tell you this, man. You always ask the right questions, and you asked an explosive question. I'm gonna just say this: it would be very, very interesting. I think from any time period or any kid's way of life, it was obviously not necessarily a trend when I was playing. So everybody just kind of had the mind state, unless it was something to go back home closer to being back home because of a family situation. You know, you was always kind of with the mind state of, finish it out. Make the situation that you're at the best situation. And that's what ended up happening here at Kansas State for a lot of us, and even particularly me. So it's definitely different. But I'll tell you this, you're really good at asking the right questions.
Well, I have to ask you off air sometime. I'll remember to ask that off air the next time I see you.
All right, please.
Shane Southwell is talking with us here. So tell me about, we just had Marquis Noel on in the first hour of the show. Tell me about him. He's a New York kid. I love watching him shoot from the logo. I love his toughness at just 5'7". What is it that you guys saw in him, and what can you tell us about him as a player?
Man, Marquis is obviously somebody that I've known for a while, but to be honest with you, when we talk about all the different things that we needed to add during our off-season, obviously you see his size and things of that nature, but he checks all those boxes, and I think the biggest value that is a little bit underlooked or overlooked is the fact that he's a champion. So bringing another guy along with Mike McGurl to add some championship DNA was really, really important for us. And that was something that we really, really kind of put our mark on, and we understand, obviously, the type of play and the type of dynamic he brings to the game from a quickness standpoint, pushing the rock, shooting the basketball from deep, like you said, being able to make plays without necessarily calling a play was really important for us to get. But like I said, the biggest important was his championship DNA that he already demonstrated in college.
Now, I know that he, being from New York, had already been to Little Rock, Arkansas, so it probably is not as tough to sell Manhattan, Kansas to him because he's experienced that. But you brought in Maximus Edwards, Ishmael Massoud, guys who are all from that area. Like, how tough is it to sell Manhattan, Kansas to kids that are much more familiar with Manhattan, New York than Manhattan, Kansas?
I mean, I think it's definitely different, but I think for me personally, I can sell the story a little bit differently because I played. So it brings that factor in there where guys will listen. Obviously, Manhattan, New York is a lot different from Manhattan, Kansas. But you know, it's certain guys that's going to make this place special. Certain guys that's going to want to be at Kansas State. We always use it. We always use it. Coach Weber always said we want guys that want to be at Kansas State. So if you want to go to a school where you can focus, get better, and develop, and be a part of a family, Kansas State can be that place and should be that place for any guy anywhere in the country, wherever they're from, the suburbs or the city. And we've done great with city guys. You know, I think I played with 6 city guys myself, New York City, tri-state area guys, just myself alone. I think Coach Weber coached, I believe, 5 tri-state area guys, and I might be wrong in terms of the numbers, but it's something to that nature over his time frame in Kansas State. So that just shows how well we've been doing in that area over these last 10, 11 years.
Shane Southwell is talking with me. So I do not know, I'll be honest, I've not seen much or don't know much about Maximus Edwards. If you were selling me on what he brings to the table, what would you say?
Oh, man, definitely athletic and explosive. Max is somebody that we probably didn't have since getting Xavier Sneed coming out of the high school ranks. Just a 6'5", athletic, nice, strong frame. Another guy that was overlooked. He was a guy that when you look at him over his high school career, you know, he always played on very, very high level teams with a bunch of high level players, and he always made winning plays and always scored the basketball, no matter where his teammates was or who his teammates was. When he was essentially a 16U player, he was playing 17U EYBL, which is one of the highest competitions in AAU basketball, and he averaged double figures in that. Then you add on his stats on the grind session with his high school, Our Savior Lutheran, that produces a bunch of high major talent year in and year out. He did really, really well over these past 2 years. So we're excited to have Maximus. He brings something that we needed. We talk about filling needs in the recruiting this past year, and he fills that for us.
And then Massoud, you know, I know he had to play the 5 some at Wake Forest just because of the situation that they were in, but do you guys see him as is he a 3? Is he a stretch 4? What do you foresee his role being here?
Yeah, we think, you know, he's definitely a perimeter player. That's for sure. You know, it was just because of situations I believe that happened at Wake Forest. Luckily for us, you know, having Davion Bradford, Casey Azagu, Carson Lagarde, we won't necessarily need him to play the 5 position at all. We're definitely going to use him, which is probably a really, really good position for him as a stretch 4. But for us, you know, we always use the small ball 4, even back when I played. And we use that 4th, kind of almost like a guard, you know what I mean? It's like the 4th guard or 4th perimeter player. So he definitely would be a big-time weapon for us on the perimeter. Obviously, everybody knows about his shooting ability. But his basketball IQ is a lot higher than he gets credit for because he's such a good shooter. So we're interested. We're very excited to use that part of his game as well.
Shane Southwell with us here on the game. You know, I think, look, I'm thrilled about adding more shooting and more scoring. I think it was clear that you guys needed that. But this is a program that does pride itself on defense. Do you feel like there's any kind of sacrifice with what you guys lost and now what you're bringing in at the defensive end of the floor?
It's always when you lose anybody to your team, it's always something that is a loss. Definitely when you lose guys like if they're going to go to Antonio Gordon, Rudy Williams, those guys were great defenders and helped us definitely when we started getting better defensively over the stretch of the year. So obviously you're going to lose something with that. You lose chemistry, but hopefully if we do a great job of building that chemistry in the summer, that's why it was important to get older guys, and we think we got the right older guys, the guys that wanted to be at Kansas State. And like you said, defense is what we're known for. So we think that if we could get the right guys to buy into what we do defensively, we think we can teach it to anybody and we can be successful.
All right, Shane, this is going to be like the building you up portion of this. You're going to have to talk about yourself now because Rob Cassidy, who is a friend of mine and the national recruiting analyst now for Rivals.com, he tweeted the other day that he was in a gym in New York and somebody that's really connected and dialed in told him that Shane Southwell is a rising star in the coaching profession. So what is your reaction to hearing that?
Oh man, that's pretty big time. It's special in its own sense. I'll say this: if you go to a gym in New York and they don't have good things to say about me, that's the issue in itself. So we'll leave it at that. Obviously, as a young coach that's developing every day in this profession, it's good to have some rewarding remarks. But the job's not finished. We get our wins and losses is our reward. So that's the really most important part right now. But it's great to hear things like that from a bunch of different people across the college basketball landscape.
Do you have ultimate aspirations to be a head coach?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. It's something that I dreamed about for years. Even back when I was playing in college, I always told myself as wanting to be a coach. So definitely with the aspirations of being a head coach.
Hey, Shane, so I used to live in New York City for a real short time. Wasn't there very long.
I mean, he was there for like 2 months. Let's be careful with the live.
Well, 6. But, when I was there, I didn't drive at all. And this is completely random, but when John spoke to Marquis Noel, I heard him at one point get into a car, so it really got me thinking, he's a New York kid. I wonder if he had never driven a car before he got to college. I want to know, before you got to K-State, were you an experienced driver at all?
That's a great question. No, I wasn't. But I did have my license. I wasn't at all when I came in. What's funny is Ishmael, he doesn't have his license. Think about that. And he's from Harlem. He's going to be a sophomore. And he doesn't even have his driving license. So that just speaks to you about the city. Driving is definitely a task at hand. So I'm glad you brought that up. But no, I wasn't when I first came into Kansas State. Will Spradling definitely helped me out with that. But Will was crazy. He let a guy with little experience driving let his drive his car from time to time. So I appreciate Will Spradling for that.